Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be working with the Spellbinders June Stitch Die of the Month. This is called Luau Beats, and it creates these really cool drums and a guitar, which you are going to actually string with your stitches. They look really awesome when they're finished, as well as some leaves and some flowers to fill in around and give those Hawaiian vibes. So I've gone ahead here and cut out 5 different drums. Now, as you can see, I have made some different sizes here, and I did that by using the full drum for the tallest and then either the top or the bottom portion to create those smaller drums and give us some variety. So I'm going to start out here showing you how I have stitched all these together. There is layers to this. So when you are first starting out, you're going to want to glue this sort of stretched portion onto the top because these holes are going to layer together. So you just kind of have to look at what layers where in order to know what order to put everything in. But this is basically the only thing you have to put down first before you do any stitching. So getting into the stitching here, you're going to want to look at this as if you're creating a V pattern. So I'm starting at the bottom, going off to the hole on the right. And then at the top there, I'm going to go just to the next hole down. And then I'm going to go back down into that first hole, creating our full V. And I'm going to continue that pattern as I go along, just moving from right to left. So I will move into then the second hole on the bottom, moving then up back to the hole at the top on the right of that, over to the left, and then back down. And as you're doing this, it does make sense when you are actually doing this in person, but that's the best way I can describe it. I tried a couple different times. At first I was looking at these as if they were X's. Nope, it's a V. So just as long as you're creating your V as you go along there and you start from the bottom, I think is what makes a huge difference, and then work your way up to creating that V on either side of your bottom hole. And here we are, just finishing up here at the end. I'm going to give you a closer look at this so you can actually see the V pattern. As usual, I will secure my ends using my mint tape. This just works really well to hold that in place until we get some glue there. And there you can see pretty clearly how the V is working. We're gonna finally layer this together now. So I have the next piece, which is the one that has the sort of smaller holes in it. Gonna layer that behind to add some yellow. And then of course you have the solid piece to fill in fully behind that one. For my colorway today, I pulled out a color cube and I found this really pretty sort of more muted tropical vibe. So this is actually color cube number 367, and the cardstock I'm using is from Concord and Ninth, Briar Rose and Honeycomb, from Paper Tray Ink, Berry Sorbet, from Stamp Market, Melon and Coastal, and from Spellbinders Mint. I will then add in some additional colors for our leaves and the browns that we need. So from Concord and Ninth for those, I'm using lemongrass, avocado, sand, peanut, and cocoa. And from Paper Tray Ink again, I am pulling in honey nut. So here I am working on our smaller drum. I gave you a look there. I had cut this out from the top portion of the large one. And I'm just going to trim off that excess, and then I will take a nail file to make sure that the bottom and the sides of that are all nice and smooth, just giving that a little curve on the edge there to make it look a little bit more like it was meant to be this way. Now I'm skipping ahead here to my third one. You'll see I had gone ahead and stitched across on my pink drum. I decided at the end I didn't like that. So what I had done was just a straight stitch across the top and bottom. And I just felt like it was a little too plain for what I was looking for. So I will come back later and adjust that. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to show you putting that one together. Now here, I had started to put this other one together. This is another sort of half drum, and of course it's the bottom portion of the larger drum. And it just has the one stitching across the top. So I am going to go ahead and stitch through here, and I believe this is called seed stitching, I think. I'm going to go all the way across and then back through those holes to get a nice continuous line of stitching. So I'm filling in all of the blank spaces that I missed on my first stitch across. I'm going to go ahead here and just knot this into place so that's nice and secure. I don't have a large place there for my mint tape, so sometimes it's easier to just give a little knot. I'll trim off that excess, and then we'll get our backing glued into place. And I'm just going to take those tails, kind of push those into that glue to keep them from flying out the edges. And then I went ahead and I'm going to use another top portion from our drum across. You can see it's a little bit larger, but it works just fine. So I will go ahead and stitch those other two there off to the left, but I'm going to skip ahead again for the sake of time. And I'm just going to quickly here in a second, it should pop back to, yep, to the pink one. So I have trimmed out what I had originally done, and I'm just going to go ahead and stitch this again in that same V formation that we did for the largest of our drums. Again, I will secure that with my mint tape, and then here I'll give you a look at the finished version of that, just the shorter version trimmed down. Here we're going to quickly go through one of our leaves. This is pretty straightforward. You can see as you die cut the leaf that it does give you sort of an outline of how your stitches should go. So you're basically, again, creating a V, but with, of course, the stem in the center. So I will go from the right to the center, and then from the left to the center, and then sort of fill in that middle stitch. And I'm just going to do that all the way up this leaf. And once we're finished, I will really simply secure that just by running that down through the back of our stitches. And I will do the same thing with the tail end as well that we started with. Lastly, we are going to go ahead and put together our guitar. I have zoomed in a little bit more on this for you. So again, you want to make sure you're doing these in the right order. There are certain pieces that have the holes punched into them. So you want to add this sort of overlay for the guitar portion there. And then we're going to add I'm not sure what you call that. But the portion that holds the strings for the guitar as well. And then because our strings are going to stretch over this brown piece on the neck of the guitar, we're going to place that as well. Now, when you place down that end portion, you're going to notice that the holes do not match up. This is on purpose. It's going to help control where the string is going. So as you place this together, you will see that the two center holes in the back are just enough space to keep that string in there and keep it in the middle of that neck as you scroll down. So there you'll see here, there you can see the first one. And then as I put the second one in, the hole there is pretty small, but it's going to make sure to keep that string separate from the other one so that they're not getting all jumbled up. I think this is really genius, actually. When I first started lining these up to play around with it to see how it worked, I was very confused. And then as I stitched it, I realized, no, this was completely intentional. It wasn't a mistake, and just really super smart thinking on Spellbinders' part. Of course, I will secure both ends with my mint tape, and I do want to make sure, again, this is a small section to have that tape in. You want to make sure that it's not showing in the holes there, so just trim away whatever you need. And then we finish up with our bottom layers. So the lighter brown piece I'm going to place behind our string holders at the far end. And then this sort of curved piece is going to fit behind the hole that we have there, as well as the strings at the bottom. It's pretty much a perfect fit there. I should have looked up the names for the pieces of the guitar before this, but I think you know what I mean. And there you can see, I'll give you a closer look at our strung guitar. All right, at last we are putting our first card together. So I'm going to layer 3 of these drums and one of our guitars for this. I've also pulled in some leaves as well. I just want to create sort of a little musical centerpiece here. And I want to leave a little bit of room for leaves, flowers, and then of course a small sentiment at the top. But I want this to be the showcase. These drums are just, I love the stitching on them. I love the vibes of them. It's just so cool. So we're going to add some art glitter glue to the back of this larger blue drum, and we'll put that into place. This background is made from the Spellbinders mint cardstock. Then I'm layering these just to give some interest, kind of staggering their placement to give a little bit of a 3D look there. We'll add some foam dots to the front 2 drums. I'm just making sure those are nice and straight. I don't want to cover up too much, but I do want to give the look that these are sort of in a cluster. And then for our guitar, because the stitching on these and these drums have several layers of cardstock as well, I didn't want to put too much extra foam dot. So we're just going to place 1 foam dot towards the bottom of the guitar, and then I will add some art glitter glue to the rest, and we'll just layer this, keeping this just 1 foam dot layer thick. Now, don't do what I did. I got to this point and realized I wanted to tuck some of my leaves behind my drums, and well, I had already glued, foam dotted, however them down. I was lucky that I was moving rather quickly and I was able to sort of peel that up, but my life would have been a lot easier if I had just placed these first and then added my drums on top. So I'm fussing around with these, trying to make them fit in a way that I would like them to without having to peel everything apart. And I'm just going to use my pin there to just eke a little bit more space. I'm going to trim off some of the stem portions of these leaves to help them fit a little bit better. And then once I'm happy with the placements, I will, of course, add some art glitter glue and get those positioned. We'll go ahead and get our drum glued back into place. And then a little glue under each of our leaves as well, just to make sure they're tucked in nice and tight. I wanted these to be stick up somewhat off of our card, but also be nice and secure. We'll finish this up with some flowers. These do layer together in a very specific way. So as you're placing them down, you just want to make sure before you add your glue that your top layer is in line with your bottom layer. There you see I'm just kind of rotating until I find how the puzzle fits together. I'll just position these around until I get something that I'm happy with. And then, of course, we'll glue those down as well. I felt like we needed a little more orange, so I'm going to add one of the smaller flowers. I also really like things in threes. They just seem to feel more right. So 3 flowers, 3 leaves, 3 drums. And then I'm going to finish that off with one of the little yellow star centers. And I'll add a few of those around the card as well, just to give us a little more eye movement. For my sentiment, I'm going to pull in a Stamp Market set. This is called Cue the Confetti, but it has a Celebrate stamp in there that really has kind of a tribal look to it. So I thought that went really well with the pattern on our drum sets. So I'm going to stamp that out with some intense black ink. There you can see me pulling in a sample paper. I always do that when I'm adding a stamp to a panel that has already had everything glued to it. I want to make sure it's nice and straight. I want to double check before I commit to my actual panel. For the inside, this is from the same set and just reads Happy Birthday, matching with the font on the front. We'll go ahead here, add some art glitter glue to our panel and get that placed on the top of our card base. And of course, we'll add some ATG to the back of our inside panel and place that down as well. And that is our finished card. I've got one more quick card to share with you. I really fell in love with these little guitars. Again, I just think the way that this has been put together is so genius. So I decided I wanted to make these in a sort of rainbow of colors. Both of my nephews play guitar, so I know this card will be used. I may actually need to make a second one, so they each get one. But once you get used to putting this together, this really didn't take me too long at all. I think the die cutting probably took longer than the actual stitching for these. So I'm going to just make a rainbow of these and pop them up onto a slimline card. I'm adding some foam dots behind them, and I am carefully making sure to really try to cover as much of the back as I can. I'm going to pull in my foam strips for the neck of the guitar just to make sure, because these are smaller and it does have these smaller little pieces. I want to give them as much attachment to the card base that I can. And then I'm going to finish up with one more of our small Spellbinders dots on the end of each of these. We'll flip those over and get them in rainbow order. So I'm just going to lay these out for positioning. And as I was doing this, I decided, well, let's flip them, right? So we can kind of keep it even. Let's get our Roy G. Biv order going here. And now I'm just going to lay them out, make sure that they are placed evenly. And I find that the best way to ensure we don't get too off track is by starting in the middle. So I'm going to grab that green in the center there, and I will place it down first, and then I will work from the center to the bottom, and then from the center to the top. And that way we keep everything pretty even. I am eyeballing it. I didn't pull out my pencil and ruler. I feel like I'm happy with how that's looking just by eyeing my placement there. Now I am pulling in another old stamp set here. This is from Simon Says Stamp, and it is called It's No Secret. But I looked through my stash. I really wanted something with rock in it, and this was all I could find. And it has a U rock, so that's what I'm going with. Again, using my Intense Black ink to stamp that out. We will, of course, add some ATG to the back and place that on the inside of the card base. And that will complete our second card for today. Here are a few close-ups of the finished cards. In the description box below, you'll find my blog post, which has additional photos and links to the supplies I've used. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.